The tinsel has fallen. The presents have all been unwrapped. The trash cans have been packed full. And we switched into our comfy pants from all of those holiday carbs we've enjoyed. The guests have left. Or maybe, like those holiday leftover cranberries, are lingering and are still there. We have counted down our Advent calendars. We have anticipated and expected the arrival of Jesus. We sang Silent Night and lifted our candles high in the air as we remembered that star that led those magi and shepherds to a stable over 2,000 years ago. We've hustled, we've worked, we've planned, we've executed parties, celebrations, and worship services, and you just might find yourself exhausted and overstimulated. Or if you're like me, an extrovert, just now coming down from the emotional high of all the stuff to do. The holiday season from Thanksgiving through New Year's is really the apex of our calendars and brings a lot of joy, but also a lot of expectations with it. And maybe like Jesus, you find yourself feeling as if you just fed 5,000 people. See, Jesus was no stranger to people, appearances, work, and encounters that brought joy, but also expectations. And very quickly, what we see in the ministry of Jesus and what he modeled to his disciples was a practice of intentional engagement and also intentional disengagement. Jesus would minister to the needs around him, and then he would intentionally retreat for rest from his Father to minister to him. Here in Mark, we read that the apostles gathered around Jesus and reported to him all that they had done and taught. That because so many people were coming and going that they did not even have a chance to eat. He said to them, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." So they went away by themselves into a boat to a solitary place. Jesus and his disciples were so busy doing ministry and helping bring God's kingdom that they didn't even have a chance to eat sometimes. Then Jesus instructs them to come with him to a quiet place and rest. Jesus knew all of their limitations, and he knows all of ours as well. Could you imagine being constantly on and taking care of all of the world's needs and never stopping to rest, reflect, and Selah? This Hebrew word Selah appears in the book of Psalms, and it stands as a lyrical term that you would see in the music as the Psalms and the scriptures were historically saying. Selah means to pause and reflect. Now, Selah would be used in the lyrics of the songs, and this happened when there was an intense narrative being said, or when there was something in the subject matter that we shouldn't skip over. At that point, the psalmist would want the hearer to pause and reflect on the importance of what was just said or sang. That is what this very online service is all about. It is a moment to pause. It is a moment to rest. It is a moment to reset. It is a moment to Selah. And we want to be committed as Jesus followers to do the very thing that he practiced and taught his disciples to do, which is to take a moment from ministry and to pause and reflect. And so as we shut our doors to our sanctuary this morning, we invite you to participate in this online worship that not only allows you to worship, but gives our entire church, all of its members, staff, and volunteers an opportunity to do what Jesus did. We just had one of the busiest but most meaningful times of the year as we journeyed through the Advent season. We were preparing for and expecting the celebration of the birth of the Christ, Jesus. And that moment has passed. But let's not skip over this season quite yet. Let's change gears, slow down, pause, and reflect on the importance of what this season actually means. We don't want to just jump onto New Year's resolutions. May we stop and reflect on the glory of a God who loves us so much that he would come off of his heavenly throne and put on flesh. Come as a vulnerable little baby who would then need everyday average people like you and me to raise him, to care for him, so that he would one day become the Messiah. And that Messiah would eventually take the flesh that he had put on, and he would give it up to be torn, beaten, bruised, and pierced to defeat the evil one and free us from the bondage of our sin, shame, and fears. Don't miss this moment of Christmas. Jesus took on flesh and chose to live the difficulties of this life for you and for me. Don't miss on how all the cards were stacked against Jesus and his family, and yet God made a way. Don't miss the stillness of the stable after Jesus finally arrived. Don't miss that quiet ride back home from Bethlehem to Nazareth. Don't miss the entire season that we celebrated the birth of Jesus with all the stuff that goes with it. Jesus doesn't need our parties or our presents. He wants you, and he entered this world for you. Don't miss that. The entire buildup of this season of preparation is so that we may have an encounter with the living Christ. And he came into this world for you, so that you could find refuge in his love, so that you could rest from this rat race of the world, but rest in his goodness, so that you can reset from the expectations of performance and reorient your life to being present in his perfect peace. He came into this world so that you can have moments of Selah, where you can pause and reflect on the wonder of his love, the beauty of his grace, the majesty of his power, the healing nature of his heart, and the freedom of his presence. Rest, reset, Selah. You know, it was 13 and a half years ago when Becca and myself found ourselves starting to figure out what it means to be a parent. Our firstborn child entered the world with a bang. Now, we prepared as much as we knew how to for 9 straight months, and then Selah finally entered the world. After a long day at our church's baby shower and walking around the art affair with my parents and then getting to bed late, Becca's water broke that night at 11 p.m. on July 17th. Now, we quickly gathered our stuff, freaking out the entire time, having no idea what we were about to get into. Again, we spent 9 months preparing, but expecting, anticipating her arrival. And it was finally happening. We drove to Riverside Hospital in Columbus and we got Becca settled in, but little did we know how settled in we were going to have to get. Hour by hour went by with the progression of the birth, but the progression got slower and slower. We went from a few hours of labor to several, and then to dozens. After 24 exhausting hours of frustration, pain, and tears, it felt as if we were at the end of our ropes. We didn't know why she wasn't here yet. Becca began to experience a high heart rate, and so did the baby. We were scared. After 24 hours of the water breaking, and the baby and the mother are now at risk for infection. And so we were practically pleading with the doctors to get this baby out, and yet they were like, let's wait. And they continued to wait. We were feeling not heard and even more scared. I finally walked out into the hallway and I just melted into a pile. I felt my dad pick me up. I began to sob into his shoulder as I had nothing else to give, and I felt as I couldn't help. But that was it. I did have nothing. I couldn't give anything but some support and encouragement, but it wasn't about what I could do in that moment. The only thing that I could do in that moment was rest in my dad's arms. Rest, reset, Selah. Becca was amazing, and she fought through this entire event. Finally, the decision for an emergency C-section was made, and after 27 of long hours of labor, we had a baby girl. Becca was recovering great, but we weren't out of the woods yet, as this baby now needed monitoring for an infection and high heart rate for 24 more hours in the NICU due to the stress of the birth. Here we were waiting again. After another long 24 hours, she was deemed healthy and cleared, and we were finally all together. We sat there in that hospital room with our first child in complete shock wonder, and joy of everything that just had happened. We looked at our new baby girl and we were extremely grateful. But this new baby girl didn't have a name yet. We didn't even come to the hospital with a name. Yet as we sat there with her, feeling the peace of Jesus in that moment after such chaos, we were drawn to the book of Psalms. And we began to read through them. And all of a sudden the word Selah was highlighted to us. Now, I had no idea what that meant, so I instantly had to look it up and learn. But once I read the meaning, it meant to pause and reflect. After that chaos, we were now in this crazy little simple moment called the pause and reflect. And that is who our Selah is for us. She was God's reminder that even in the middle of the pain, chaos, drama, and overwhelming moments of life, God was present. And as God's constant presence is the cause for us to pause and reflect on His goodness. So that's where we find ourselves today. We are in the rest, the reset, the Selah. As a church family, we are taking a Selah to pause and reflect on God's goodness and everything He has done in our lives in church in 2024. We are taking this moment to not just pack away the candles and the greens for next year. We are taking an intentional time to rest from the work, the busyness, the schedules, and the expectations, to have a moment of rest, resetting, and Selah. We're inviting all of us to rest in Jesus today. He is worth our work, but He is also worth our rest. And as you pause and reflect today, rest with this psalm. All the earth worships you and sings praises to you. They sing praises to your name. Selah. Come and see what God has done. He is awesome in His deeds toward the children of man. I mean, think about that. All the earth worships you. Pause. Reflect. He is awesome. The busyness and excitement of Christmas has come and gone, and we are being invited to a space to rest, reset, and Selah. So rest with your family. Rest your body. Rest your soul. Reset your expectations. Reset your emotions. Reset your priorities. Pause and reflect on the awesome God that loves us unconditionally. Pause and reflect on the awesome God that transforms us into His character. Pause and reflect on the awesome God that invites us to belong and then invites others to belong as well. Pause and reflect on the awesome God that makes a way. Pause and reflect on the awesome God that knew when we needed to Selah. Take this day and rest, reset, and Selah.